Crawfish and rice make a great combination for both the dinner table and the farm. Most of the mud bugs that end up in your crawfish boil or local restaurant are raised in ponds that alternate with rice farming.
The solution to Australia's agricultural crisis wasn't found in laboratories or boardrooms, but in the muddy waters of rice paddies, where millions of tiny red claws were about to rewrite the rules of modern farming forever. This is the story of how a desperate gamble became a global phenomenon, and how sometimes the most ridiculous ideas turn out to be revolutionary. The year was 2023. Australia's rice heartland was dying. John Mitchell said, "I watched my neighbors pack up and leave one by one, fourth-generation farms just gone. The water allocations kept shrinking, chemical costs kept rising, and the rice prices, they were in free fall." In the Riverina region, once Australia's rice bowl, over 40% of farms had closed in just 5 years. The survivors were hanging on by a thread. Dr. Sarah Chen said, "We were running out of time. Traditional farming methods were becoming economically and environmentally unsustainable. We needed something radical, something that nobody had tried before, but what they were about to propose would make headlines for all the wrong reasons." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a 3 a.m. research session that would change everything. Dr. Chen said, "I was scrolling through agricultural papers from Hubei province when I found it. Farmers there weren't just growing rice, they were growing crayfish in the same fields, and their profits were astronomical. The numbers were staggering. Chinese farmers were earning double, sometimes triple their previous income. Chemical use had plummeted, yields had soared, but there was one problem. Nobody in Australia believed it would work. Board members said, 'You want us to put what in our rice fields? This isn't farming, it's madness.' For 6 months, Dr. Chen's team faced rejection after rejection. Then one morning everything changed. The call came from a farmer so desperate he was willing to try anything. John Mitchell had nothing left to lose. John Mitchell said, "My wife thought I'd lost my mind completely. 'Honey,' she said, 'we're rice farmers, not seafood restaurants.' But I looked at our bank statements, looked at our dying fields, and thought, what if this crazy idea actually works?" The preparation was meticulous. Every detail mattered. Too shallow, and the crayfish would die in the heat. Too deep, and the rice would drown. Dr. Chen said, "We weren't just throwing crayfish into rice fields and hoping for the best. This was precision agriculture meeting aquaculture. Every pH level, every temperature reading, every stocking density was calculated." John Mitchell added, "The day we released the first batch, I'll never forget it. 50,000 baby crayfish, each one no bigger than my thumbnail. My whole future was swimming in the palm of my hand, but they weren't the only ones taking a leap of faith. The internet was not kind. Social media posts said, 'Breaking, Australian farmers have officially lost it. Next week they'll be putting kangaroos in their vineyards. Ha ha ha.' TV comedian said, 'I guess when life gives you rice fields, you make crayfish cocktail?' News reporter said, 'So tell us, Mr. Mitchell, what do you say to critics who call this the most expensive joke in Australian agriculture?' John Mitchell said, 'I say, ask me again in 12 months. The mockery was relentless. But in the muddy waters of the Riverina, something extraordinary was happening that nobody could see. While the world laughed, the fields whispered secrets. Dr. Chen said, "By month 3, we were seeing things we'd never seen before. The water was clearer, the rice was greener, and the pest pressure, it was almost non-existent. The crayfish weren't just surviving, they were transforming their environment. Every movement aerated the soil. Every feeding session removed pests that would normally require pesticides." John Mitchell said, "I'd wake up before dawn just to check on them. Not because I was worried, because I was amazed. The fields looked more alive than they had in years. But the real test was coming. Harvest season would reveal whether this madness was genius or the expensive mistake everyone predicted. November 2024. The moment of truth. The rice harvest came first. Cameras rolled. Critics watched. The entire agricultural community held its breath. John Mitchell said, "When we saw those yield numbers, I actually cried. Not just maintained, improved. 8% higher than my best year ever. But the rice was only half the story. The real gamble was crawling beneath the surface." The second harvest had never been attempted at this scale in Australia. Would there be enough crayfish? Would they be healthy? Would they even be marketable? John Mitchell said, "That first trap, when I pulled it up and saw it full of these beautiful, healthy crayfish, that's when I knew we'd done something special." 1,200 kilograms per hectare, at $15 per kilogram, from fields that were supposed to be dying. The numbers were undeniable. The mockery was about to become admiration. The world that had laughed was suddenly paying attention. Chef Marco Rodriguez said, "When I first tasted these rice field crayfish, I was blown away. The flavor was incredible, clean, sweet, sustainably raised. My customers couldn't get enough. Export orders flooded in. Singapore, Hong Kong, even China, the birthplace of rice crayfish farming, wanted Australia's version." Dr. Chen said, "We weren't just changing farms. We were revitalizing entire communities. Young people who had left were coming back. New businesses were starting. It was a complete economic revival." Local business owners said, "For the first time in decades, my feed store is expanding instead of shrinking. These farmers aren't just surviving, they're thriving." But perhaps the most profound change was in the farmers themselves. John Mitchell said, "I went from being a laughingstock to, well, people call me a pioneer now, but I just call myself lucky. Lucky that I was desperate enough to try something crazy." The revolution wasn't staying in Australia. Agricultural delegations from Bangladesh, Vietnam, Uganda, and 15 other countries descended on the Riverina. They came to learn. They left as converts. Dr. Priya Sharma, Bangladesh Ministry of Agriculture, said, "What Australia achieved isn't just agricultural innovation, it's hope for food security in a changing climate. We're implementing pilot programs across 3 provinces. Within 18 months, the ridiculous Australian experiment had spread to 4 continents. Millions of farmers were transitioning from desperation to prosperity. The environmental impact was equally revolutionary, methane emissions down 40%, chemical usage reduced by 60%, water consumption optimized. The planet itself was benefiting. The same internet that had mocked was now marveling." Viral video creator said, "I literally can't believe I'm saying this, but crayfish farming might have saved Australian agriculture. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." Farm tourism exploded. Families drove hundreds of kilometers to see the crayfish rice fields that had become agricultural celebrities. Child visitors said, "Mom, can we have crayfish in our backyard?" Teacher said, "This shows us that innovation often comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the craziest ideas turn out to be the most brilliant." Awards followed. Agricultural innovation prizes, environmental stewardship recognition, even a United Nations Sustainable Farming Commendation. John Mitchell said, 3 years ago, I was ready to give up farming forever. Today, I'm speaking to agricultural ministers from around the world. If that's not proof that you should never give up on crazy ideas, I don't know what is." Today, over 200,000 hectares of Australian farmland operate as rice crayfish systems. What began as desperate mockery became a global movement. The farmers who took the first leap of faith aren't just surviving, they're mentoring the next generation of agricultural revolutionaries. Dr. Sarah Chen's team continues to refine the system, exploring new integrations, new possibilities. Dr. Chen said, "We've proven that when we work with nature instead of against it, everybody wins. The farmers, the consumers, the environment, and yes, even the crayfish." The Muddy Revolution taught us something profound, that innovation doesn't always come from Silicon Valley or research labs. Sometimes it comes from desperate farmers willing to put crayfish in rice fields. And sometimes the most ridiculous ideas turn out to be the most revolutionary. The next time someone tells you an idea is crazy, remember the crayfish. Remember the mud. Remember that revolution sometimes starts from the bottom up. What impossible idea do you think might actually work? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of innovation that changed the world.